Hello, hello. My name's Sammy, aka Fortuning Boy, and this is another Fingerstyle First Day, my new series on basically having some little beginner pieces, introducing you softly into the world of fingerstyle ukulele. Now, if you're new here, we do have 10 pieces to get through, and they are in difficulty order. So today's piece number 8. So if you want a more gentle introduction into the series, I would recommend going from 1, and even if they're too easy, just going through learning the process, because you might learn something new. And if you want to make sure that you don't miss out on the latest Fingerstyle First Day exercises or any of my ukulele reviews, then make sure you subscribe to the channel, pretty please. In the video, I will teach you the whole piece, talk to you what's going on both our hands, but if you would like the PDF tab, sheet music to read through whilst you're learning, then that is available with my PDF book, Fingerstyle First-days, and that's available via my website. The downloadable book has all 10 pieces scored out in tab with chord boxes and everything, as you can hopefully see. And also there's 3 MP3 playthroughs of each piece available, basically track speed, slower, and then slower again, so it's a little bit easier to hear on your ears. And you'll have heard that the playthrough at the start has some extra instrumentation and stuff like that. If you're not a fan of that, or you just want to hear the ukulele on its own, then actually if you skip to the very end of the video, just check the chapters, then there is a ukulele only playthrough, so you can hear that also. Okay, we need a high G-tuned ukulele. Get all tuned up. Let's go. Okay, so quick introduction on this piece. The piece is set in A minor, and again, we're going to utilize our A minor scale all up our G string. Now, funnily enough, this is the very first thing that we spoke about in lesson 1. So if you did miss lesson 1 somehow, or you can't remember your A minor scale on the G string, I do recommend going back to that lesson to check it out. It's an important scale and useful for us as ukulele players. Who has time to go and watch videos? Right, super. I'm going to tell you now. So the A minor scale on our G string is the 2nd fret, which is an A, the 4th fret, which is a B, the 5th fret, which is a C, the 7th fret, which is a D, 9th fret is your E, 10th fret is your F, 12th fret or open is your G, and then you're back to the 2nd fret, which is your A. That is an A minor scale. So that means that creating melodies, I can obviously modify my G string to basically play around with my A minor scale. But I'd say our highest string, which is the A string, is really useful for modifying when it comes to melodies. So we kind of need to know our A minor scale on our A string also. Now you could learn this, but what I want to do is talk about a weird little tip instead. And that is any note that we play on the G string, say for example if we play the 5th fret on the G string, it's a C. In order to find that note on your A string is actually 2 frets lower on the A string. So that would be the 3rd fret on the A string. And if you listen to those notes, they're both identical. This is a useful tool both ways. So for example, if you're playing a note on your A string and you want to find that note on your G string instead to modify your chord, then you just go 2 frets up to your G string and I can find it there instead. But like I said, it's vice versa. Any note that is on the G string, if I wanted to play, for example, this 4th fret here, and that's a B, and I wanted to find that on my A string, 2 frets lower, 2nd fret. And throughout today's piece, you'll see that we start moving around more on the G string, but we also start adding in some extra notes on the A string. And if you're always wondering where those notes come from, how is he plucked them randomly, they're never random. It's from the A minor scale, okay? We're in the key of A minor. I'm always thinking of the A minor scale. That's it. So every note that we change on the G string and the A string, just the A minor scale. So let's kick off with bar 1 and talk about our plucking pattern, because again, it's going to stay very similar throughout the piece. The hard thing about today's piece is the left hand movement that we have to include also. So that's what messes it up. I think the right hand is quite consistent, hopefully not the most difficult, but like I said, the left hand is going to make it more tricky. So we need an A minor chord, 2 0 0 0, and first of all we're going to do is pinch the G string, E string, and A string together. Okay, so that's a quarter note, so we would count that as 1. But because the rest of the bar is 8th notes, I do recommend counting it as 8th notes, so we'd count it as 1 and. Okay, so for 2 and, we're going to play the G string and then the E string, and I'm plucking that with my thumb for the G, and then plucking the E string with my index finger, G, E. That's followed by G, A, And again, I'm going to use my thumb for the G and then my middle finger for the A. If you use different fingers, that's absolutely totally fine. It's just I use a 3-finger style method. And then for 4 and, we're going to go back to G, E again using the thumb and then the index finger. So it means we pinch, we go 1 and then we go G, E, which is 2 and, G, A, which is 3 and G, E, which is 4 and. So if I count that out, it would sound like this: 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So you can see we get that little pause after the pinch. 1 and then we get pretty much into a marching 8th note. 2 and 3 and 4 and. So again, I just spent some time just getting used to that pattern. But the good news is the whole piece is pretty much going to comprise of that pattern. So you're going to get lots of practice in just by playing the piece. So for bar 2, we're going to take our middle finger and we're just going to move up to the 5th fret. And again, I'm still feeling that this is an A minor chord, but I've just modified it using my A minor scale. So it looks like an A minor, but we're just starting on the 5th fret instead. So we're going to play the same pattern. We're going to pinch G, E, and A, pluck G, E, G, A, G, E, in exactly the same rhythm. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. For bar 3, we're just going to move our middle finger down a fret. So we're just going to move to the 4th fret, and we're going to play the exact same pattern. So we're going to pinch G, E, G, A, G, E. And then for our 4th bar, same pattern, but actually we're just going to release so it's all open. And again, it feels weird that you're like, I can play this, it's just all open. But remember, the open string is still part of your A minor scale. So don't ever think that your open strings are too easy. They're just also notes. Don't write that off. So I'm all open, so we pinch G, E, G, A, G, E. So like I said, that's the same pattern that we're going to play throughout each bar. So that means that bars 1, 2, 3, and 4 will sound like this. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So now we move on to our next line, and actually it's pretty much going to be exactly the same apart from the last bar. So that means for bar 5, it's the same as bar 1. We're back to our A minor chord, 2, 0, 0, 0. We're doing the same pattern, pinch, G, E, G, A, G, E. For bar 6, we move up to the 5th fret. And again, I'm just using my middle finger for all this. If you want to use different fingers, that's totally fine. But later on, we're going to use the middle finger for chords. So I do recommend just getting used to zooming around with your middle finger. So on the 5th fret, we pinch G, E, and A. G, E, G, A, G, E. For bar 7, we move down to the 4th fret, same as bar 3, pinch G, E, G, A, G, E. And then for bar 8, we're going to come to all of our opens, but all we're going to do is pinch and let that sit for the whole bar. And basically, we're just going 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. And it's always a lovely long kind of whole note. Is a nice way of basically saying, cool, I'm done with that section before I introduce the next section. So that's our first theme over. Line 3 introduces a slightly different theme. Like I said, our right hand pattern, our plucking hand pattern is going to be the same, and that will be good or bad. So for bar 9, we're going to go back to our A minor, and we're going to play the same that we did for bar 1 and bar 5. We pinch G, E, and A, G, E, G, A, G, E. Okay, so for bar 10, we're almost going to do the exact same thing. So we're going to pinch G, E, and A. We'll play G, E. But when we play G and A, we just need to drop our pinky finger onto the 3rd fret of the A string. Now, we don't want to drop that on earlier as soon as we come to the bar because we need all of those open strings, and we want that open string to ring out. So you really want to drop that pinky on just before you want to use it, okay? Don't do it so you kind of mute the string, but essentially try and leave it as long as possible before adding that pinky finger. So we will pinch in the A minor, play G and E, and then play G and A, but on the G and A, I've just added my pinky to the 3rd fret of the A string. G, E, G, A. And I'm going to keep that there, and then play G, E again. So like I said, that's the same right hand pattern. Pinch, G, E, G, A, G, E. Exactly the same. We're just adding that pinky finger on to add a little bit of melody. Okay, so coming into bar 11, essentially we have to play an A minor add 9 chord, which means that your middle finger stays where it is, we disappear with the pinky, and your ring finger is going to take over on the 2nd fret A string. So you should have 2, 0, 0, 2. He's legit one of my most favourite chords. We're going to apply the same pattern, so we play G, E, and A, G, E, G, A, G, E. And then for bar 12, we're going to do exactly the same as what we've always done in the last bar. Open it up to an A minor 7, pinch G, E, and A, G, E, G, A, G, E. So it's this little subtle pinky movement that adds a little bit of melody when we add it and then move to this ring finger on the A minor add 9. I'll play the whole line through. This is how it should sound. 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2 and 3 and 4 and. So, that line you enjoyed so much you'd love to do it again, right? I thought so. On the sheet, there's a repeat marker at each of the end of these bars. It looks like a thick black line with 2 dots. That means we have to play that same line again. So, let's play the exact same thing again. 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2 and 3 and 4 and. So line 3, play it twice round, then you're good. Okay, so line 4 is a weird one. It's gonna almost feel identical, but there's one tiny change, and that's because if you look at A minor chord when we play with our middle finger, and then if you play an F major chord, which should just add our index finger to the 1st fret on the E string, those chords are very similar. Harmonically, they fit very nicely together. So that means we're going to be playing pretty much everything we just did, but holding an F chord instead. So that means bar 13, I need an F chord, please, instead of an A minor. We're going to play our same pattern. So pinch G, E, and A, G, E, G, A, G, E. And then for bar 12, we're going to do the same pinky trick whilst holding the F. So pinch G, E, and A, G, E, and then G, A. And I'm adding my pinky to the 3rd fret there whilst holding that F chord. That chord is still technically just an F chord. We just have a high C. And then after that, I'll play my G, E again. So bar 14 will sound like 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. And again, once I add that pinky, I'm going to keep it on whilst I pluck the last G and E. Okay, so for bar 15, we need to do the same thing we did before. So we remove our pinky and we're going to add our ring finger to the 2nd fret of the A string. Still got an F chord here. So we have a very spicy F chord. I know I said this about A minor add 9 earlier, it's one of my favorite chords, but this is an F add sharp 11 is legit probably my other most favorite chord in the world. It's a very simple chord, but I'm in love with that sound and utilize it far too much. So once you've got your F add sharp 11, which is 2, 0, 1, 2, we're going to play our same pattern, pinch G, E, and A, G, E, G, A, G, E. If it sounds a little bit spooky, that's totally fine, it's meant to. And then for bar 16, we're going to remove our middle finger and ring finger. So you're just going to keep your index finger on. You should have 0, 0, 1, 0. That's an F add 9 chord. On high G, that is pretty much always the F chord I play as standard. And we're going to play the same pattern, pinch G, E, and A, and then G, E, G, A, G, E. So yeah, we have very much the same left-hand acrobatics that we do from line 3, but this time, because of that extra F, that added finger there, it might feel a little bit more difficult. And this is what I mean about this piece's difficulty. When we first start it, it might seem absolutely fine, and then when we come to playing these around, just fretting those notes, and using those fingers that we don't like to use to play the melody might feel a little awkward. So line 4, bars 13, 14, 15, 16 should sound like this. 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 4 and 1, 2 and 3 and 4 and. Okay, so now we hit line 5, which is exactly the same as line 3. So exactly the same, so it'll be A minor, add the pinky, there, and then open. So exactly the same as line 3, so I'm not going to bother teaching this, we'll just have a little playthrough. Line 5 should sound like this. 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2 and 3 and 4 and. And that's kind of our second theme done then. I very much, for me thinking of it, I think of it as an A minor line, because we have to repeat it, the F line, and then the A minor line. It's all very similar, but just try and think of it harmonically. A minor, F, A minor. Okay, so for line 6, we have a slightly different pattern, but only slightly. Now, the chord that we're going to play is a C add 9. Now, usually when I'd say a C add 9, we could play this basically as 0, 0, 0, 5. But what I'm going to do is take out the G, and I'm going to basically put my middle finger on the 5th fret of the G string. So I should have 5 on the G string with my middle finger, open, open, and then 5 with my ring finger on the A string. And there we go. That's a beautiful version of a C add 9 chord. And again, I just move my C note from here to there. I know I've got a C there, so I'm like, well, I'm stealing it away from there, so how can I put this in a different place? It's not on the A string. Okay, you can go to the G string 2 frets up. Ta-da! Okay, almost the same pattern. So for bar 21, we're going to pinch G, E, and A. And then we're going to play C, E rather than G, E. So that's the only difference really here. We're going to play C, E. Then we'll play our G, A. And then we'll play G, E. And again, I'm always going to use my thumb to pluck the C string. But if you're a Pima person, then you can use whatever finger you like. So it's pinching G, E, and A. C, E, G, A, G, E. So just that additional C string in there. Just gives kind of a big old weight to it because we haven't used that lower string yet. And also we've got a C chord, so using that low C note is really nice. Okay, so for bar 22, it's almost exactly the same, okay? So we pinch G, E, and A. We play our C, E, and then we play our G, A. And we're not going to play G, E, we're just going to play G. And that's basically to give us an easier time coming over to the next chord change. You can put the extra E in if you fancy it, okay? So that's, if you fancy the extra challenge, you can still put the extra E in, but I've tried to give you breathing room here by getting rid of that E. So bar 22 should be G, E, and A, C, E, G, A, G, and that will last for 4. If I count that out, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So the change I'm talking about comes to bar 23. So we need to change to a G6 chord. Now, usually we might play G6 chord with our index fingers and our middle fingers. But the thing is, on a fretted instrument, is we have to change the chord depending on the chord that came before it or after it. We want the easiest, smoothest changes. So you do have to learn to play chords with different fingers that you wouldn't usually play them with. Let's just have a look at this transition from the C add 9 to this G6, and I'm going to talk about how I'd want us to play it. So we have what I call an anchor finger, and that's basically we already have a finger for the next chord on the right string. That's your ring finger. So I want us basically to not remove your ring finger, but just kind of bring it down to the 2nd fret A string. And then your middle finger might travel on the G string with it, but we can kind of pick that up as we're doing it, and then we just drop the middle finger on the 2nd fret C string. So we should have 0, 2, 0, 2. It kind of feels like you're playing a G7 chord, but just without the index finger on the E string. So again, just try that change. You C add 9 there, your G6 there. We're using the same 2 fingers for both the chords. And again, that's just because I want you to train that and get comfortable with that movement. So for bar 23, we're going to use the same pattern that we did for the C chord. So we pinch G, E, and A. Then we pluck C, E, G, A, G, E. And then for bar 24, we're going to do the same thing, but we're going to give ourselves that last gap again. So we pluck G, E, and A, C, E, G, A, G, and you can leave yourself a rest there. Now in the playthroughs, I'm not leaving a rest there. I'm going straight for the next chord, okay? But like I said, if you're looking at the tabbed book or the sheet, you'll notice that, hang on, you're playing an extra note there. And again, it's just because I'm increasing the difficulty for myself there. I've written down the easier version, but I'm telling you now, if you want to make it more difficult for yourself, just add in that extra note, but only if it's worth it. That means that line 6 will sound like this. 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3, 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So for bar 25 in line 7, we're going old school. We're going back to line number 1. So we play exactly the same as line number 1. That's where we had our A minor, then up to the 5th fret on the G, then the 4th fret on the G, and then the open. So exactly the same as line 1. That means line 7 will sound like this. 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 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 3 and 4 and. Okay, so bar 29, line 8, exactly the same as line 6. So that means we're back to our C at 9, where we pluck the C, and then we're down to our G6. It's going to be exactly the same. So that means the line 8 will sound like this. 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 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 3 and 4 and. Okay, line 9, exactly the same as line 7 and line 1. So that means we go back to our A minor, 5, 4, and open. So that means line 8 will sound like this. 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 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 3 and 4 and. And then for our final line, it is actually the same as line 2. So that means we're going to end with a nice pinch. So just as a reminder, that means we'll play our A minor on the 2nd fret, up to the 5th fret, 4th fret, and then we'll just do a single pinch, G, E, and A, to end the piece exactly as line 2. So it's the same way we entered the piece as the same way we'll exit. So that means our final line should sound like this. 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. And you can leave that hanging for as long as you need. So that's our piece. The main thing is, once you've got it down, is the speed of the piece. We're 120 BPM. Which is quite fast when we have to remember. These pieces are getting longer now, okay? So that's quite fast to remember all of our piece, and especially the subtle little movements here. So make sure we practice it slowly and build up your speed gradually, okay? So like I said, try and push for the speed on this one. It's important. So well done you. That's another Fingerstyle First Day ticked off. That is 8. We only have 2 more to go. It's terrifying and upsetting to me. As I mentioned in the last video, if you do like my style of writing and composing on the ukulele, I am teaching a 5-week course on composing fingerstyle for the ukulele. You can check that out in the comment down below, but basically it'll be held live over Zoom, but every session is recorded. So if you're watching this in the future and have missed it, don't worry. You just download it and you'll get all the videos and PDF worksheets whenever you want. And for those that are interested, I'll perform today's piece on the Flight 4SB. It stands for, who knows what it stands for, but I think it's a very attractive ukulele. I like it a lot. Thank you so much for listening to me yet again. If you have any comments or any questions, please drop them down below. But if not, I'll see you in roughly 2 weeks for Fingerstyle First Day piece number 9. Happy practicing until then. I'll catch you very soon.